just have you kind of just start by introducing yourself. You can say your name and who you are, and we'll go from there.
Okay, my name is Keelan Darby. I am the wife of Ben Darby, who was the former Huntsville police officer who was convicted of murder in August of 2021.
Since the sentencing, it's been about a year now.
Yeah.
Talk me through like what it's like to be the wife of a convicted murderer in the state of Alabama.
So Ben was a Huntsville police officer. He answered a call for service and ultimately had to use deadly force. That took almost 3 years to go to trial and go through a trial. During that time, we both continued to work our jobs for our departments, and we dealt with the situation that we had in our hands. It was stressful at times, uncertain, because we've never gone through this before, and there was no one to go to ask, what do we do next? How do we navigate this path? And we've had support from the very beginning of people just helping us, giving us direction on how to handle things. And we did go to trial back in May of 2021, where they ultimately found him guilty. And then he was sentenced in August, and it's been a year since he's been home with me, which has been very hard. I'm trying to navigate this basically on my own while he's behind bars unjustly, in my opinion, and in several opinions here locally and nationwide. But it's a cause that I will stand for until the day that I die, or until the day that Ben comes home. He will come home, and this will get overturned. And the support that we have and the support that's growing is just, it's something that is just so great and so humbling to see people see this for what it really is, and see that things that weren't allowed to be said in the trial weren't allowed to be brought forth. People see this for what it is, and that it was an unjust conviction.
What are some of those things? I mean, I know we've seen the appeal.
Yeah.
Well, when you sat through your husband's trial,
Mm-hmm.
did you feel like the deck was stacked against him as far as how this trial was conducted?
Absolutely. From the very beginning, you said I sat through the trial, which is incorrect. I wasn't allowed to be there, which is a Sixth Amendment constitutional violation of his rights. It's supposed to be a public trial. According to that amendment, it was a closed trial. So the public and news was not allowed to be present during that time. We were put into a room to watch it over a video feed, and people can remember, media that was there, yourself will remember that the video would be turned off throughout times during that trial and would be blacked out, so that no one knew what was going on while the proceedings were still going. During that time, people would go on stand to testify for Ben in his defense. A neighbor of Parker's, and then a police academy instructor that instructed Ben in several academies after Ben's, weren't allowed to testify. The jury was not allowed to hear their testimony. Why is that? It was allowed to be put on the court record for an appeal if we had to go that far, which is where we're at now. But the 12 people who had to make that decision as to whether or not Ben was guilty of murder weren't allowed to hear that testimony.
What do you take away from the decision that jury made? What do you say to those jurors?
I don't think that I know that they weren't given all the information. They were given a story that Ben was a murderer from the beginning. They weren't allowed to hear that he would have been exonerated by case law, by testimony of those people. The jury was not allowed to hear that the Huntsville Police Department cleared Ben Darby of any wrongdoing, and that the other two officers who were on scene were put through remedial training, that they were disciplined for not taking the correct action. Ben Darby was not, and the jury was not allowed to hear that. Ben was not allowed to present a defense for himself, because every time that we objected to something, it was overturned. Every time that the prosecution objected to something, it was granted. Every time that we tried to defend, Ben's lawyers tried to defend himself in court, it was not allowed. case law, Graham versus Connor, Alabama criminal statute 13A327 backs Ben Darby. It's police justifiable homicide is the law for that. That was not allowed to be presented in court. So many things that the jury wasn't allowed to hear. If they would have heard, Ben would not be in prison right now.
You are still a police officer.
I am.
You have a pretty unique perspective on what has happened here. But my question is, how do you keep going to work every day knowing that you are trained in similar methods, police training procedures from A post all the way down for your job, knowing that from what you believe and others, that your husband was using the training that you also received and ended up convicted of murder?
Right, so I am still a police officer. It is hard. Some days it is hard to go to work because of the certain calls that we answer. I do work patrol, and so we do answer suicide by cop calls very frequently, or suicide calls in general. I go back to, I don't work for the Madison County area. I work for a different county, and I know that our prosecutors and attorneys and our department backs us, just like Huntsville Police Department backed Ben and still continues to this day to back him. I have the faith in our county to do the right thing, which is uphold the law of Alabama and the federal case precedent that exonerates police justified use of force. And that's what Ben did not have that support from Madison County.
And that was why, I mean, in the trial, that wasn't allowed in according to the judge because that was all civil. And so we were talking criminal, and this really just hasn't come up where an officer is charged with murder on the criminal side of things and goes to trial. Therefore, this is truly the first test case of a situation like this in the state of Alabama. My question is, as a police officer, as someone involved in this so closely, understanding the details that maybe people that just watch the video don't understand about what's happening behind, you know, the minds of a law enforcement officer in a situation. Why was it critical in your mind that the jury understands the case precedent that was set in the civil courts as it relates to this case?
So case law, Graham versus Connor being the Supreme Court case law, that is the bedrock case for police use of force. It clearly lays out how police are supposed to conduct themselves when using force, the circumstances, because every situation is different. Not every call you go to is going to be a different call, different circumstance, different levels of force used. Just an officer being present is a show of force in our continuum. If the jury would have heard Graham versus Connor, Montoot versus Carr, Grzinski versus Palm Beach Sheriff's Office, all of those are either Supreme Court case law or 11th Circuit case law that strictly deals with an officer using force with an individual with a gun. One of them, namely, speaks about the officer who's used force, his perspective, which is how an officer is supposed to be judged, how they used force, and another officer on scene may not have felt that they were in danger, which is the case here because Officer Pegues said that she didn't feel in danger, which I still don't understand. But it was viewed by the officer that used force, not by the other officers on scene. That was not allowed to be given to the jury.
In that video, maybe something that a lot of people that watch the video see and use as justification for saying, yes, this was not proper, was, you know, when Mr. Parker had the firearm to his head, and Darby says, put the gun down. Couldn't this move also be viewed as he's making a move and it could have resulted in the same? So what was that situation? How was that going to be resolved differently than what happened? Right,
so that's a furtive movement. If Graham versus Connor specifically states an officer does not have to wait for the beat of a weapon to be pointed at them. If they feel that they are in danger of threat of deadly force against them or another person in their presence, they are allowed and justified to use deadly force. And that also is backed by Alabama, the criminal law 13A327. And 13A 323. So you tell me when I'm going to shoot you. Go ahead and tell me. Bam. You're dead. You're not going to pick this up before I turn the gun, or before Parker were to turn the gun. And that's what happened. Ben told him, drop the gun. And as he was holding the gun to his head, he said, no, I'm not going to do it. And Ben said, I'm not going to tell you again, drop the gun. And he went like this, shrugging his shoulders, moving the gun forward. And Ben used the force, that justified force against that furtive action, that movement towards him and those two other officers present.
What has life been like for you? I know you say that you have received a lot of support. Nationally, we see the movements, the nonprofits that have come to the Stand With Darby movement that has started. Lots of money has been raised for the defense. But there's also another side of that. There's a large percentage of this population that thinks the jury got it right. So when you encounter the other side of that, how do you have those conversations, and what is it like for you to try to explain this day in and day out? Yeah,
so it's a lot. At the very beginning, it was overwhelming because I was by myself with a very select group of people helping me try and get the word out. Because if people remember, there was a gag order after Ben was charged back in 2018, and no one was allowed to talk about the case publicly. So for 3.5 years up until the trial, we couldn't say anything because of the gag order. Now that that's over with, I'm able to speak freely about what happened to Ben and the incident that he was involved in.
Why did you want to talk to us? Why did you pick Channel 31? I mean, obviously you see our coverage.
Yeah, you guys have been fair in your coverage consistently, not with just Ben's case, but other cases within the state. And you're the first ones to have reached out to, wanted to do an interview. I've asked several other news stations to do interviews, and I've been told, yeah, we would like to, and then nothing has come from it. So I appreciate you guys taking the time and wanting to hear it from someone who's directly involved to the case, being his wife. I'm directly tied to what's going on. The support, the Stand With Darby movement, as you call it, Ben and I started that back in May when he was found guilty, because we knew we were going to need help to fight this appeal. The Huntsville Police Department and the city leaders of Huntsville have backed Ben from the beginning, back when the incident happened.
And they've taken a lot of heat for that.
They have taken a lot of heat for that, but they know that case law, Alabama law, he has a defense, and all of that exonerates Ben. And because if he was wrong, if he did the wrong thing, if you look at the last 2.5 years of the public's perception of police, if a police officer does wrong, that department in that city immediately are hands off with that officer. And that's the exact opposite of what happened with Ben. He's been supported from the beginning. He's had the National Fraternal Order of Police support him in writing an amicus brief for his defense during this appeal. If Ben really was guilty of murder, if Ben really did do the wrong thing against a national training standard that's taught across the nation, then why are these people coming out of the woodwork to support him? He has support locally, in the state, throughout the nation, and worldwide. I've had people contact me to help with donations and get the story out about what actually happened in his case.
We're waiting for the appeal back from the state criminal appeal court.
We are.
It's anyone's guess when that might come down.
Right.
How confident is Ben that this appeal will be in your favor?
We are both very confident, again, because he has case law that backs him, previous cases that back the action that he did. I think it was a political sense here locally with the courts and the players involved. I think that there was bad blood between the Madison County's office and the Huntsville Police Department. In the fact, because originally when this happened, Ben was told, if we fire you, we're not going to press charges. That came directly from the district attorney's office. They said, if you fire Ben Darby, to Chief McMurray, if you fire Ben Darby, we won't press charges. Chief said, no, he did the right thing. I'm not going to fire him. The district attorney's office brings about a indictment. We go through 1.5 to 2 years of silence because of just the system, and then COVID delayed a lot of things. And then January of 2021, the DA's office speaks with our lawyers and says, hey, just take this plea deal of no prison time, 5 years probation, and we'll be done. Take aggravated manslaughter, no prison time, 5 years probation. Ben said, no, I didn't commit murder and I didn't commit manslaughter. I'm not taking the deal. Then we go to trial. He's ultimately found guilty. We go to sentencing, and they request for at least 25 years. Locally, if you look at that, you go from, we don't want to do, just cut him loose and we won't fight, we won't press charges, to we're good with 25 years in prison. How is that not personal?
Any regrets there?
No, because if he did do the wrong thing, then he should have been found guilty. But he stood for the last 4 years now on, I did do the right thing. I followed my training from the state of Alabama, A-Post, the FBI Police Survival School that we both went through. He's backed by the National FOP. If he were to take that deal, he would have lied for the last 4 years of his life that, yeah, I really did commit murder, when he didn't. He stood his ground the entire time, knowing that he did exactly, he was trained in exactly as he was supposed to.
I need to walk around real quick.
Okay.
Check on the shot.
I know we're trying to do the 20 minutes.
No,
so
it's fine. No, it's okay. No, it's okay.
Just want to, I want to make sure we have all this so that we're asking all the questions.
Right. No, it's
You're
fine.
doing a great job.
Thank you.
I'm going to see if we can adjust this mic just a little bit. So. There we go. It was just touching. I don't think it was doing anything.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Still good to go?
Yep.
And we're good on this
Over
camera?
there, 2 shot.
Hi. I want to talk a little bit about, I don't know if you've seen any of our coverage, but we've been covering Limestone Correctional Facility and ADOC and talking a lot about what that facility is like.
Yeah.
So walk me through the last year. How much communication have you actually had with Ben? Have you been able to visit him at the facility? What does he tell you about what life is like locked up?
Yeah. So for the first 9 months that he's been in prison, I wasn't allowed to see him, which was very hard. They said it was because of COVID. I think it's more because ADOC is so understaffed. They don't have the employees to do visitation. Since April, I have been able to see him for once a month for 2 hours. It's never a full 2 hours because of conflicts within the system. But I am able to see him once a month. We talk every day. That alone got me through the 9 months of not being able to see him. You go living day to day with your spouse, doing everything from cleaning the kitchen to walking the dog to going to get groceries to, hey, we have to go to this appointment. You live life together, and to have that taken from you unjustly, it's a hard road to navigate. I'm thankful for the time that I've been able to see him. Again, it's only once a month right now, but the Limestone Correctional is where he's at, and from what he has told me, it is a very, very bad situation.
He's in the protective custody wing.
He is in protective custody, but that doesn't mean that everyone in there is protective custody qualified. So protective custody should only be more of your government officials, so police officers, firemen, anyone in the, like an attorney, senator, someone of a government status goes to protective custody because of their background. But you also have people from general population in protective custody because they have a hit on them in general population. So the state puts them in the PC wing so that they're safe. Well, now you're violating the guys that are in PC, protective custody, because now they're around people that they shouldn't be around in the first place. And
how much time does he spend in his cell every day?
From what he says, it's basically an open door, so he's not stuck in his cell for 24 hours a day. He was like that here in Madison County when he was here, and then also at Kilby. He was stuck in his cell by himself at Kilby for days. I would go days without hearing from him, which as a wife is very troubling because I don't know what's going on. I don't know if he's safe or not, and from all accounts, he's not. He's around people that he shouldn't be around. But at Limestone Correctional, he is allowed out of his cell. into like a common area where he can go sit down at a table and read or watch TV, or he is allowed to go outside for a yard call.
I understand there's dozens, if not hundreds, of people in these pods. And
Right.
one, maybe two during some shifts, correctional officers in charge of that whole
Yeah,
operation.
there are times where Ben said that they're so understaffed that they've had to been put on lockdown because they don't have the staff to watch his group of people, so they just lock them in their cells. So they don't have the opportunity to get out and stretch their legs or go make something in the microwave or whatever. They're stuck and confined to their cell because ADOC doesn't have the manpower to supervise the PC wing. That doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
Has he been threatened?
He has been threatened, yes. There have been threats against his life of inmates in there. Inmates in there have tried him and tried to fight him. Thankfully, he was able to defuse that situation, and they were by general population inmates who shouldn't be in PC. But they know who he is, and that's a direct threat against him. He does have people in there, and people know who he is. It's been a high-profile case from the beginning. He said as soon as he walked into Limestone, multiple inmates came up to him and said, "Hey, I know who you are. You don't deserve to be in here. You didn't do anything wrong. We're in here for a reason. Yeah, we did commit the crime that we're said to have committed, but you did not murder. What you did does not constitute murder." So the guys in there understand and support him and help him as much as they can. But there are people in there that have it out for him, and he has to watch his back at all times.
Talking about the appeal, if it does go your way, the court's fine, then there needs to be a new trial.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready for that?
Absolutely. Our lawyers are on ready at all times. We talk very much about what the future holds. There's so many things that could happen at the state level with the Court of Criminal Appeals. It could be reversed and rendered, and we'd be done with this. It could be reversed and remanded, which is most likely, meaning we will get a new trial, and we are ready for that.
Emotionally, are you ready for this?
Yes.
I mean, we've gone now.
It's been 4 years. It's been 4 years. Like I said, I will do everything in my power until he comes home and we're done with this nightmare that it's been.
Finally, just final thoughts on you. I mean, you weren't there that day, but yet you are this has changed your life, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it has changed my life. I take every day as the day that I have. I can't look into the future that far because I don't know what the future holds. I can only go off of the day that I have, and I garner a lot of strength through my faith and relationship with the Lord. Without the direction I get from people in my church and just people that support us and help us, I wouldn't be able to do this. And there's so many things that have happened that I don't think are a coincidence. People that have come forward to support us, namely the Pipe Hitter Foundation. If people aren't aware of that, Eddie Gallagher was a Navy SEAL who was wrongly imprisoned during pretrial confinement for a war crime that he did not commit. That was later come out to be that he was acquitted and he was wrongfully imprisoned. Very similar to Ben being wrongfully imprisoned for something that he did not do. Life has changed, obviously, because I don't have Ben with me every day, but I push forward knowing that he is going to come home. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and that day hopefully will be very soon.
Final question.
Okay.
It doesn't happen the way that you guys think it will. The appeal doesn't go in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
What is the message that sends to every law enforcement officer in the country?
I think in Alabama, it shows that the courts do not support us as law enforcement, even though we have Alabama Criminal Code justifying what we can do. And it's still being taught at APOS today. To this day, it's still being taught as a defense that police can defend themselves when a furtive movement is used against them. And I've spoken with A-Post about that. They don't have an answer as to why Ben's locked up right now. This hasn't been a Alabama problem until the Ben Darby case. Nationally, other states have ruled in the favor of the officer. If it doesn't go our way at the state courts, we will push it to the Alabama Supreme Court. And if we have to go to the United States Supreme Court, we're prepared to do that.
Anything else I didn't ask that you wanted to talk about?
I just want to thank you for having me on and giving me the opportunity to speak about Ben and the case that he has. If people would like to know more information, they could go to standwithdarby.com and also pipehitterfoundation.org. Both websites have information about Ben's case, about how articles supporting everything that I've spoken about today, ways to donate if they feel led to help us in this journey. Any dollar that is donated goes strictly to legal fees, as that is something that is amounting quickly. But we will fight this until Ben comes home. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been there by our side since the beginning. Ben's going to come home. It's just a fact.
Well, thank you for taking the time to come up here.
Thank you.
1-2 shot over here.